Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Dentist Show. I'm Gary Takish, your podcast co-host. The title of this episode is From Marketing Mystery to Marketing Mastery. Well, I hope that title intrigues you. I think you're going to enjoy this episode. Hey, before I get into the episode, though, a couple of announcements to make. Coming up shortly after this one publishes is our next Thriving Dentist MBA workshop, live stream workshop. It's 9 hours of CE spread over 3 evenings, 3 hours an evening. It's September 19th, 20th, and 21st, 3 hours an evening. And in the MBA workshop, I go through the 10 elements of a thriving practice. And we go through those in detail. Those 10 elements become your foundation to develop your practice to full potential and to develop a practice that will provide personal, professional, and financial satisfaction. I run that like a workshop. It is done live, although you attend it virtually, so you can attend from the comfort and convenience of your home or office. But we do it live, so you can ask me questions. It's not recorded. You can ask me questions and allow it to be a lot more personal to you based on your questions. Very inexpensive, probably the least expensive way you can get 9 hours of CE. But come join us, and not only inexpensive, but very practical. You can apply it the next day. If you'd like to register, go to thrivingdentist.com/MBA. Look forward to seeing you there. All right, the next announcement that I have is we have a returning contributor, my wonderful friend, Dr. Paul Henney. Paul is a practicing dentist in Virginia. He and I do some educational things together. We do a co-discovery workshop together. Anyway, Paul is going to talk to you about some communication tips, communicating with your patients. And in particular, he's going to talk about the concepts of timeliness and relevance. In other words, how to make sure that your communication is timely and relevant. Awesome information here from a true master. I think you're going to enjoy this. With no further ado, here's Dr. Paul Henney.
Hello, this is Dr. Paul Henney, and my clinical tip for this session is going to be actually centered around communication, specifically how we communicate with our patients. And I'd like to focus in really on 2 points. One point being the timeliness of our communication or the information we're trying to transfer, and the second thing being relevance, the relevance of the information to the person at that point in time. So they're kind of interrelated to each other, timeliness and relevance. If we think about it, we're all receiving information all the time, every day, from things that we see on TV or things we might be reading briefly on Facebook or whatever the source. And the vast majority of it is information that we don't pay a lot of close attention to. We just kind of graze past it. There's absolutely no way that our brain can process all the information that it's receiving all the time. So it filters everything based on timeliness and relevance. This is true, obviously, of our patients. So when we communicate with our patients, we've got to understand that they're only going to hear things that are timely and relevant. When we are trying to communicate complex ideas, perhaps an explanation of why a person has multiple issues, let's say they've worn down their occlusion, they've lost vertical dimension, they're destroying their posterior teeth because their anterior guidance is now dysfunctional or not present anymore. These are complex ideas that if the problem isn't really causing noticeable issues or a disability in the person's life, then they're likely not going to want to hear your message because your message is complicated, potentially painful, potentially it's going to take a lot of time to resolve, and for sure expensive. So the easy thing for them to do is just say, this really isn't relevant to me right now. I can eat as pretty well every now and then. I have a problem with a back tooth that needs to be repaired, but generally speaking, I'm doing pretty good. The assumption is, if I'm doing okay today, probably I'm going to be doing okay tomorrow. So I'm going to focus my attention on things that are more timely and more relevant. So how do we get out of this loop? We get out of this loop by making sure that when we communicate with our patients, particularly over issues that involve complex ideas or complex concepts, that we communicate in ways that are centered around goals, not our goals for them, but goals they have for themselves, for instance. And they don't need to be super specific, but they should be identifiable. Like, I would like to keep my natural teeth for the rest of my life, or I would like to preserve as many of my natural teeth as I can by taking on strategies now that will help that be possible, things like that. So when we craft answers or solutions to problems that we identify, then they can be connected to those goals. That makes it relevant. And that may make it timely, or they may need to delay addressing it or stage it or prepare for it financially or otherwise. But we're connecting relevance and timeliness to a goal, a future focus, an orientation that's important to them, something that they want to achieve that may be associated with something they want to avoid. So keep this in mind when you communicate with people. Try to keep your information timely and relevant. Sometimes you have to revisit it and allow them to realize that it's relevant. Or maybe sometimes you just need to be patient and wait for a problem to occur and then connect the dots. If you master this sort of mindset, you'll find that your case acceptance rate will go up, and that patients will listen to you more, pay more attention, because you're not really trying to talk them into anything. You're trying to help them see things from a different perspective. Okay? So I hope that was helpful. Again, this is Dr. Paul Henney, and thank you for your time.
Welcome back to the Thriving Dentist Coaching in Action segment. This is Narain, your co-host. Paul is a dear friend and is a walking encyclopedia when it comes to influencing patients, understanding patients, communicating with patients. So hope you got some really valuable insights from his tip. Think about it, like a lot of what Paul shares, sometimes you have to listen to it multiple times to truly get it because he goes so deep. So hope you enjoyed this tip. And let's jump into today's episode, from marketing mystery to marketing mastery. If you were to think back 10, 15 years ago, marketing was all about trying different things, right? A full page ad on Yellow Pages, maybe a radio spot, all kinds of things, and then figuring out which ones work and then doing more of it. And after a while, that thing that used to work doesn't work anymore, so you try something else. But in 2022, sitting where we are sitting in the digital world, that's not the case. Today, if you master Google, you really can turn this mystery into mastery. Of course, there are pieces to the puzzle, and you need to understand the pieces to the puzzle. And you need to pay attention to the important things and be consistent with those. So, Gary, I'm looking forward to our episode today.
Yeah, the title, Naren, from marketing mystery to marketing mastery, is a description of my own journey in marketing. Our listeners will know that Dr. Paul Nielsen and I purchased the practice that we call Life Smiles. We purchased that in May of 2007. And we wanted to attract more new patients to the practice. And so we knew we had to learn something about marketing. But honest to goodness, if I look back now, what is that now, 16 years ago, Naren, 15 and a half years ago, marketing there was this just absolute mystery to us. It felt like a voodoo dark science. It felt like it was just complete mystery. And we would try something, just like you said, we'd try something. And if it worked, we'd do more of it. And if it didn't work, then, we would try something else. And it was scary because our marketing dollars were very precious then, as they always are, let's face it. And we felt like we were literally gambling. It felt like a gambling fund. And fortunately, we got some things to work along the way, and we figured some things out along the way. And truly, we did evolve from mystery to mastery. And that's what I hope to share in this podcast. Where I want to start with is for all of us to understand the importance of new patient flow. New patient flow is the lifeblood of every thriving practice. Now, in no way do I take away from the value of our existing patients. The value of our existing patients are incredible. But if you practice comprehensive dentistry, which I think many of our listeners do, then you're going to get to the point with your existing patients where they're either restored because we've been successful with them, or they're just of the mindset they're going to wait till something breaks till they do something. Does that make any sense, Naren? Does that sound like reality?
Absolutely, Gary. I see that all the time. Absolutely.
And some of you might say, well, those patients that are just waiting for something to break, they aren't good patients. I would say, well, not necessarily, because if they're coming in on a regular basis to hygiene, then they're voting with their feet, but they're just of the mindset that they're going to wait. And so you'll either get people restored, or you've got some of those that are just wait. And because of that, you need quality new patient flow. The more you practice comprehensive dentistry, the more we need, quality new patient flow. And every office will have their own goals for the number of new patients, and that's kind of determined by every office. But I want to start by saying that the importance of new patients is unquestionable. They are the lifeblood of a thriving practice. It also ties very nicely into an objective that I've embraced and I've taught my clients to embrace. And that's that every year we want to have our new best year. We want to have a new record year. And now I've even refined that goal a little bit further to say that I want to grow by at least double-digit percentage every year. So the definition of double-digit percentage growth would be at least 10% every year. And by doing that, the practice is simply going to get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And it allows us to cover the cost of increases in inflation and everything else. Even now in the inflationary cycle that we're in, if you could grow 10% this year, you would neutralize the current inflation rate of 9.1% annually. You'd exceed that and you'd be in the positive column. Hopefully we don't stay in that double-digit inflation rate, but it's important to grow as well. So when you put that into the equation, then mastering marketing becomes a very important function that you need to do. So I want to start by framing how important marketing is. And I imagine that I'm preaching to the choir here with our listeners because I'm sure they understand that. And now I want to really kind of piggyback on something you said a little bit earlier. I'm not sure when this happened, Aaron. Maybe you would be able to tell us more accurately. But at some point, dental marketing became all about Google. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And that's pretty much, most things that consumers buy in their local communities, they start by researching. I mean, like today, people don't just buy something without doing a lot of thinking and research. And Google is probably the best research tool on the planet, and people use it. The last stat I heard was 8.7 billion times every single day.
Every day.
Yeah.
So if someone moves to your community, the place they're going to find a dentist is likely the internet, and they're going to Google. We're going to convert Google from a noun to a verb.
Yes.
And they might type in dentist near me, or maybe they're interested in something in particular. Maybe it's, dentist adult orthodontics.
Yes.
Or something, or toothache. Maybe it's something more urgent.
Right.
Toothache.
Dentists open on open evenings because
Sure.
they have a toothache and it's 8 p.m. and they're like trying to figure out who's open right now.
And really, once we understood that, then it narrowed our what we had to learn to really learn all about mastering marketing. What was about mastering Google. Now, Google won't tell you what their ranking algorithm is. What I mean by ranking algorithms, when someone types in, a crown, dentist crown, or dentist, root canal, they won't tell you what their ranking algorithm is, but they give all kinds of clues. They're semi-transparent about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't give you the roadmap, but they'll give you some clues.
Yeah, I mean,
And
the
if
thing
you
is,
simply do what Google asked you to do, your marketing will work. And every practice, everyone listening to us has a website. Website is kind of like the hub of your marketing today.
Yes.
And I'm going to share something with you that might be a little bit disconcerting to some of our listeners. But your website is all about a couple things: how it looks and how it works. How it looks and how it works. Now, how it looks is very subjective. What looks good to one person might not look good to another. How it works is very objective. Your website works if you show up on page 1 when a patient in your community is looking for a dentist. If you show up on page 1, then your website works. And I would like to leave the appearance of your website out of this discussion today. You think that's very important, doctor, and that's okay. You can think that all you want. But what really matters is how your website works. And how it looks is subjective. What looks good to one person might not look too good to another. But how it works is absolutely objective, and you show up on page 1. So dental marketing success today is all about getting on page 1 when a potential patient in your community is looking for a dentist. And that actually breaks down to some very specific things that you can master. And now it takes it from, like I said, this marketing being some dark, obscure voodoo science to something very precise and very scientific and very accurate. And we know this because it's happened time and time again with our clients. When we teach this to our clients, we get the same results time and time again. Now, Naren, I'm going to ask you to weigh in a little bit about, some of the most important Google criteria to master. But before we get to that, I want to set up a foundation so that you're successful with this. And that is some of the details we need to also master to get our marketing to work as well as it can. And one of those is that we need to set up a format in your practice where a new patient can be seen relatively soon. Relatively soon. And what I mean by relatively soon, and I'm saying this as we're recording this in the summer of 2022, I would like a new patient to be seen no later than a week from the phone call. And let me clarify what type of new patient I'm talking about. I'm not talking about an emergency, but I'm talking about someone that, say, I just moved to the area, I met my neighbor recommended your office, and I'd like to get set up in your office for an appointment. Ideally, I'd like that appointment no more than a week out. Now, many of our listeners at this point in time are failing at that. In other words, your new patient appointment is way out there in the future. By the way, you may not even know how far out your new patient appointment is. So we have to make sure that we get that right. Because if they found you through a Google search, the reality is that potential new patient has a thin relationship with you. And if they can't be seen for 3 or 4 weeks, what are they going to do? They're going to simply go to the next dental office on the Google search.
100%.
Yeah. And then your marketing worked, but your internal systems didn't work. And I'm amazed at how often I see this. Recently, Naren, a client of mine said, I think I need to start spending more money on Google pay-per-click. That's where I want to spend more money, because that's worked for us in the past. And I knew that his first new patient appointment was 6 weeks out. So I said, doctor, let me show you something. I went over to the computer and I showed him that his first new patient appointment was 6 weeks out. He goes, oh my gosh, I had no idea. He didn't even know. I said, it makes 0 sense ramping up our marketing budget on more pay-per-click until you correct that. He said, of course. So something that you might be overlooking can be a very important piece of this. The other thing we need to do is we need to get whoever handles your phone calls for incoming patients, we've got to get them fully trained so that your conversion rate is successful. Conversion is a term that we use that simply defines what percent of the potential new patient callers do we get that we convert to a new patient appointment, the conversion percentage. Now, most dental offices have no idea what their conversion percentage is because they're not tracking it clearly. They don't know. but you need to have impeccable tracking on that so you can measure that. Because the question is, are you getting enough, are you getting enough calls from your marketing? Now, if you're getting enough calls, but our conversion is low, then it's not a marketing problem, but it's a conversion problem. If you're not getting enough calls, then that's a marketing problem. And by the way, both of those require different solutions. There's different solutions if it's a marketing problem versus it being a conversion problem. So we need to track your conversion. And let me benchmark it for you. We teach our clients that the grading scale that we use is a little bit different than the grading scale we're accustomed to in our schools. So 70% or above is an A on the report card. 60 to 70% a B, and 50 to 60 is a C. Anything less than 50 is failing. So let's say you now start to track this and you discover that your conversion percentage is 45%. We need to get that up before we ramp up more new calls, because you may not need more new calls. You may need to just do more with them. Naren, I'm going to ask you to cover a handful of things.
Yes.
That are important to master when it comes to Google. And I want you to talk about NAP consistency. Secondly, unique content with no duplicate, lighthouse scores, and search engine terms and phrases. Would you cover those in rapid fire?
Absolutely, Gary. Let me define dental marketing, at least based on my 15 years of experience. It's two parts. One is helping your ideal patients find you, and then helping them choose you. And today, 90+% of patients, the way they find you is through search. Like Gary touched on, they are not typing in one term like dentist in my city. They're typing in hundreds of terms specific to their need at that moment. Hey, I have a toothache. It's 8 p.m. The keyword might be, dentists open in evenings. Or they're looking for implants. Then they could ask 30 different types of queries related to implants. Cost, horror stories, zip codes. So they put all kinds of combinations. We start by studying Google Analytics and we try to find out what these keywords are. And of course, there are some patterns that we notice across the US. So that's the first part, right? Helping people find you. And then the second part is, okay, fine, they found you, how to make the phone ring. And that's a totally separate discussion. We'll put a link to a podcast that Gary and I did around influence. And that might be something you might want to listen to, that, okay, fine, you are ranking for hundreds of keywords. How do you get those people to pick up the phone and call you? So now let me dive into Google. Let me talk about the specific 4 things which are at the top of the list when you want to think about Google. I want to say a couple of things about Google. Google makes $250 billion a year because all these businesses, mostly small businesses like yours, dental practices, pay them billions of dollars in ad money. And that's how Google runs. That's what feeds Google. So to make the ads work, or at least get you to pay so much money for ads, they have to make organic really tough. So they did something really smart. They said 90% of the web pages on the internet get 0 traffic, 5% of the web pages get 95% of the traffic. So the $1 million question is, how do you get into the top 5%? And to get into the top 5%, Google has given us, 7, 8 things to pay attention to. And I'm going to focus on the top 4, which is what Gary talked about earlier today. So think of it like this. To get into the top 5%, you have to get an A in every one of these areas, actually an A+. That's how Google decides whether you are in the top 5% or not. I mean, you went to dental school, you know the game, right? So if you are not in the top 5% of your class in so many subjects, you're not going to get into dental school. Same thing here. It's a concept that we all understand. So NAP stands for name, address, phone number consistency. And what it means is there are hundreds of directories out there that has information about your practice. And you want to make sure more and more of these directories have consistent name, consistent address, consistent phone number. So your name, including spaces, punctuations, all these things have to be exactly the same. Same thing with address. If you spell BLVD, in your address as BLVD for Boulevard, then every listing out there on the internet should have the exact same spelling. literally like a pattern match. So that entire address phrase should match exactly. So when we start with a client, we start cleaning them up. Now, Life Smiles, for example, there are more than 100 profiles that we have been able to clean up over 6 years and that have consistent name, address, and phone number. And it's never ending. That's how Life Smiles, is getting ranked for 600 plus keywords and is getting more than 100 new patient calls. Let me touch on original content. I think Gary used the word, what was the word? Unique content. And I just want to kind of
specifically no duplicate content.
No duplicate content, exactly. What Google is doing is Google is made up of software programs. So they're doing, again, pattern matching. If they see any phrase or any group of words combined together, they think it's duplicate, meaning they think somebody copied somebody. So they have a threshold of 5% or less of duplicate content. So let's say your web page has 400 pages. If Google sees 20 of those words kind of written the same way in the same phrases, they will forgive you, so to speak. If they see anything more than 5% that's duplicated, they will punish you. So Google has guidelines on how many words and how to structure your page, plus very strict on duplicate content. So we use a tool called Copyscape. 70% of the clients we talk to before we start working with them, we find this issue, at least 70%. Sometimes it's even higher than that. The next thing we talked about is NAP, Lighthouse Score. I think.
So next was Lighthouse Score, and then the fourth category that I'd like you to kind of enumerate is keywords and key phrases.
Perfect. So Lighthouse Score. So every single page on your web page is ranked on 4 categories. So literally, Google will give you a score of 1 to 100 on something like one of the things is called SEO. Another category is called best practices. So think about each category and Google giving a score of 0 to 1 to 100 in every one of these categories for every single page. Again, higher the number, ideally 90 plus in all 4 categories, you're getting an A in Google Lighthouse Score. So if you want a given page to rank, so let's say you have a page on implants, you need to make sure that this Lighthouse Score is high, 90 plus in all 4 categories. Now in LifeSmile's case, there are 100 plus pages that are indexed by Google, and we make sure that all those pages have a high Lighthouse Score. We do this for all the clients we work with. Now the challenge with Lighthouse Score is typically the algorithm is changed at least once a month, and in some cases once a week, just the Lighthouse Score algorithm. So Google may have given you a wonderful score 2 months ago, but today you're getting a really bad score. So our teams are constantly checking for Lighthouse Score and then fixing it. Last but not least, I want to touch on keywords and phrases and how do you incorporate them. So we start with Google Analytics. We look at all the keywords you're ranking for, both in the top 3 spots of Google results and the top 10 and beyond. So let's say there's a particular keyword, implant 60616, maybe that's your zip code, and then 39 people in the last month are typing that keyword. Let's say you are in the top 3, great. Do nothing or just keep doing what you're doing so you stay there. Let's say you are 39. That means nobody's seeing you for that keyword. So our team realizes it's a wonderful keyword. You want to grow your implant business and we want to go after it. So we will study what your competition is doing, who is maybe number 1 or number 2 for that keyword, and do more of those things. And when we look at all the things that we need to do more of, it goes back into those buckets. Few things that Gary didn't touch on, I'm not going to touch on them, but I'll just name them so you know what they are. Google Eat, it's expertise, authorities. Trust, that's something that Google pays attention to. Backlink, very technical, another thing that Google pays attention to. So those are some of the points I wanted to share with you, Gary, today about Google.
Hey, thanks, Darren. This is exactly what I wanted, kind of a quick download on all of this. As we wrap up the Coaching in Action segment, I think now all of you know why I, in Life Smiles, as well as with my clients, I recommend Naren's marketing agency because they do all this stuff for us to help us master marketing. Anyway, Naren, thank you. We'll jump into the Q&A segment. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Thriving Dentist Q&A segment. Gary, I have 4 questions for you. The first one, I'm currently a solo owner dentist with the goal of building the practice to be busy enough to also support a full-time associate dentist. What would you suggest as an appropriate new patient goal per month?
This is really a great question, because what I hear from, it was true with us at LifeSmiles, but it's also true for many of our clients. Say a solo dentist he or she will say, I'm too busy just for me, but I don't know if I'm busy enough to add a second doctor. That's a common situation. So you need to solve that proactively. So here's actually the formula that I teach our clients. Whatever your new patient flow is that works for you as a solo dentist. And let's say hypothetically, that goal is 20 new patients a month. And again, I'm just making up numbers here. Your mileage may vary, but whatever works for you and your practice, I suggest you increase that by 50% while you're still solo, in a way of proactively building your patient base before you bring the associate in. So for example, if what works for you is 20 new patients a month, then I'm going to ask you to dial the marketing up to 30 new patients a month. Now that'll feel overwhelming for a little bit, but what you're doing is you're building your practice to the point where you're going to be able to integrate an associate successfully in your practice. The number one reason why associateships fail is the practice isn't busy enough to support the owner dentist and the associate doctor. So you want to be proactive with that. Initially, while you're still solo, make the number 50% more. And then when you add your associate, then make it 100% more. So again, using my example, 20 new patients a month works for you. When you're still solo, but you're building the practice to accommodate the associate, then we're looking for 30 new patients a month. And then when you add the associate, we're looking for 40 new patients a month. And I literally feel like today, thanks to your help, Naren, at Equa, that I can take my hand, like a giant hand, put it on the spigot, like, the hose in the garden, and I can turn it up or I could turn it down. Anyway, great question. Love that one.
Let me ask you the second question, Gary. I'm currently in the process of preparing to drop PPO plans by following your 6-step plan. What is the best marketing strategy to attract new patients who do not have dental insurance?
Well, first of all, thank you for being a loyal listener, and thank you for recognizing the value of our 6-step plan. Naren, let's put the episode we did. We may have new listeners that haven't discovered that yet. Let's put our 6-step plan to successfully drop PPO plans. Let's put a link to that in the show notes. So if you're new, you could listen to that. All right, and the question was, what is the best marketing strategy to attract new patients who don't have insurance? The best way to do that is to market your membership plan, your in-office membership plan, to people in your community that don't have insurance. And there's a couple of ways to do that. One would be to do Facebook ads that might say something like, no dental insurance, no problem, ask us about our TLC savings plan, or whatever the name of your membership plan is. The other way is to run that same type of ad in LinkedIn. Now that may sound like something you're not familiar with. LinkedIn, I've heard about that. Why would that be a good platform? Well, think about it. LinkedIn is a platform largely for networking among white-collar workers who are, say, between jobs. These are white-collar workers between jobs. And if they're between jobs, they likely don't have dental insurance. But the other group that's on LinkedIn are small and medium-sized business owners that are looking for their talent in their executive team. And so very often they might see your membership plan as a way to offer that to their employees as opposed to traditional dental insurance. So those are the two ways. Market your membership plan through Facebook ads, and also market it to LinkedIn. And Naren, I know that you do that as part of the service of being an Equa client. You manage those ads. The only additional amount that people pay is the amount of money that you're paying to either Facebook or LinkedIn, but you'll manage that as part of your fee. Let me share with you something not to do. Don't bother doing pay-per-click for your membership ad, Google pay-per-click, because the public doesn't know the term in-office membership plan, and so they're not looking for it on Google. Don't waste your money. How do I know that, Naren?
Because you tried it with us and we discovered you wanted to be the guinea pig with us, and we discovered.
I wanted to own a practice so I could be a guinea pig and share the positive things that work, but I'm also willing to share the things that didn't work, and that didn't work. And by the way, we've tested it in other clients too, and it didn't work. So save the money and don't bother doing that.
Absolutely, Gary. And also, I mean, email marketing or texting, like you might have existing patients. So I think those are some of the things you can work on.
Sure.
Yeah. Let me go to the next question, the third question, Gary. What are the Google Analytics data that are most important to track?
Well, I might be the wrong one to answer this question because I think I'm a nerd and I love data. So I think all the data is important because I actually like that. But it's probably not the right answer. It's probably not the answer that you're looking for. I'm going to point to two. And Aaron, you correct me if you feel differently, and you're welcome to correct me. But I think there's two data points that are critical to track. Number one is how many phone calls did the office get from potential new patients through your digital marketing efforts? How many phone calls did you get from potential new patients? That's critical. And if you don't have detailed marketing support and detailed tracking, you don't know what that number is. And then you can't make good decisions because it's all just guesswork then. So number one would be the number of potential new patients that call your office. Number two, I'm very partial to how many keywords and key phrases that my website is ranked on page 1 for. Now, there's other metrics, but I think that's a very important one. Like, for example, as recently as I think it was June, we were ranked on page 1 for 674 keywords and key phrases. To me, those are the most important analytics. Your thoughts, Naren?
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. I think those are really, really important analytics. We also look at things like, how many people are coming through maps. So Google Maps also will tell you calls, driving directions. It's becoming bigger and bigger in the mix of where people are getting new patients from. And sometimes they don't even have to go to your website. They can get everything they need, the reviews, and then call you or look up directions and come to your office all from Google Maps. A few other things I would add additionally are, the behind the scenes stuff to make sure your marketing company is doing a good job. Like how many profiles have consistent name, address, phone number? How many backlinks do you have? And I know we didn't touch on that today, like in the quality backlinks. How many pages have one or more quality backlink? So there are a lot of internal metrics, like how long are people spending? Are things converting? Like, for example, this particular page is ranking really well and getting a lot of traffic, but are we getting calls from that page? So these are all things that you want to make sure. These are like behind the scenes, or like if the end is what the metrics that Gary described, how many keywords are ranking and how many new patient calls you're getting, the means could be, things like this. So making sure that your marketing company is doing a good job. The way we do it is we have, close to 200 people now, and we are broken into 14 teams, and each team works on those, enabler metrics that gives you the final result, which is new patients.
Thanks, Naren. I knew you'd add some to that. Those are all the ones I'm interested in too, but tried to simplify it a little bit, but thanks for adding those.
Let me ask the last question, Gary. We are general family practice that also does some high value dentistry. Is it better to focus more organic SEO on general dentistry or high value services?
Yes. In other words, I'm saying both. Now, let me walk through it real quick for you. I love marketing high value dentistry. And so I have a partial favoritism towards that. Dental implants, smile design, adult orthodontics, complex restorative dentistry, treating obstructive sleep apnea, those kind of things. Love that. But let's also remember the value of everyday general dentistry, especially emergency dentistry. Now, this may be a little counterintuitive. By the way, you helped me understand this, Naren. When an emergency patient shows up in your practice, if you can get that patient out of pain, you have a tremendous conversion opportunity with that new patient. We can say, if that was you, Naren, the doctor could say, Naren, I'm happy we could get you taken care of and get you comfortable today. You came into our practice today as an emergency patient. And I'm happy we could get you comfortable today. I would love to talk to you about being a regular patient in our practice so we can avoid these kind of things from happening in the future. Now, remember the concept of reciprocity. This is the concept of reciprocity. I've done something for you. I've gotten you out of pain. And if I invite you to be a new patient in the practice, you're highly likely and favored to respond well to that. Now, there's another dynamic we've known with emergency patients. One of the reasons possibly why they're having an emergency today is they've been away from the dentist for a while. And the fact that they've been away from, and they don't have a dentist, that's why they looked up you. If they don't have a dentist, they've been away from the dentist for a while, there's a great opportunity to have deferred maintenance on them that can result in some nice case size by getting them back into good health. So I would recommend allocating time to both of those categories of patients, your high value patients and also, general dentistry and emergency dentistry. And I think some mix that, Naren, you can help determine the client, some mix of that would be most effective. Well, hey, this has been a detail-packed episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. As we come into the finish line, Naren, I want to thank your team for all that you do to support our work and our clients as well. By the way, if any of our listeners would like to schedule a complimentary marketing strategy meeting, we'll put the link. Naren will put the link in the show notes just so you can find it easy. It's www.equa.com/MSM, marketing strategy meeting. You'll meet with Lila Stone, their director of marketing. She'll share with you everything that's working with your digital marketing, what isn't working, and she'll suggest a plan to get it really optimized so that you'll really take a giant step forward to mastering marketing today. So Naren, thanks for all that you and your team do. Also want to take a minute and thank our listeners. We love what we do here at the Thriving Dentist Show, but we couldn't do it without you. Thanks so much for your support. If you haven't done it yet, jump on iTunes and write us a review. That'll help more dentists find us. When they're looking at dental podcasts, your iTunes reviews will help more dentists find us. On that note, let me simply thank you for the privilege of your time and tell you we'll look forward to connecting with you on the next Thriving Dentist Show.